Reinventing yourself in front of your team is the hardest thing any leader has to do. I know because I've had to do it several times throughout my career. It's one of the biggest risks you'll ever take, and your success is not guaranteed. I'm prepared to take that risk right now. Welcome to the Next Level Executive Podcast, a show dedicated to dentists who want to evolve from a clinician who owns a practice into an executive who leads a business. I'm your host, Perrin Desports. If you own a practice that generates over $1 million in revenue and you're wondering what's next, you're in the right place. What you do as a leader and what I've done throughout my career in leadership is one of the most challenging aspects of being an executive. Yours is not a dictatorship where you can just command people or threaten people to work harder or produce more. My career wasn't either. What makes your role and mine so difficult is that we have to create greater results through the work and abilities of other people. If your business survives, succeeds, and ultimately wins, it'll be because they executed on the opportunity and delivered the results, not because you did it yourself. Look, you and I are perfectionists, and we know the job gets done the right way when we do it ourselves. We also know the overall results are greater when our team is the one delivering them. You no longer get paid to do the craft. You get paid to see around corners, to see the future clearly when others don't. You earn their respect as a leader by making sense out of shades of gray. Nothing in your world is black and white. If it were, then someone else would have already made the decision, right? Seeing around corners and creating clarity out of shades of gray results in one thing always: leading change. I'll say that again. Seeing around corners and creating clarity out of all these shades of gray results in one thing, and that is leading change. If you're not an agent for change, you'll never truly become a leader. And it's often change because you know you have to, not because you want to. Peter Drucker is the late dean of the business school of the University of Southern California. He was an unbelievable author and thought leader in the world of business management and leadership for decades. One of his great quotes among many is, "As a leader, you have to see things the way they are, not the way you want them to be. See things the way they are, not the way you want them to be." My question for you is, when was the last time you took a hard, objective look at your business, where it's been and where it's going? And if the opportunity and necessity for change was staring you in the face, then when was the last time you confronted that reality with your team? Whether you realize it or not, you're in the midst of incredible opportunities around you. But I don't believe enough of you realize it. I'll be sharing some of my insights and opinions in the coming weeks on those subjects. I think it's time to take a hard look at your business. And when you embrace Peter Drucker's mentality of see things the way they are, not the way you want them to be, your new vision for what your business must become is inescapable. Now, the mistake too many early leaders make is that they want to build consensus. They want to feel like everyone on their team agrees with them and supports them. Let me dispel that for a second. Because being an agent for change is not a popularity contest. And the truth is that your team rarely understands There comes a point in time when you as the leader have to stand in front of them and make them uncomfortable. Comfortable people become complacent and they don't change willingly. Uncomfortable people know that they can only find comfort in a new routine or an outcome. And a lot of them acknowledge that their old routine is probably already dead and gone. My next question for you is, when was the last time you stood in front of your team and stated clearly something like the following? I've been thinking a lot about our business lately, and I'm not altogether satisfied with where we are. Now, a lot of that falls on me as the leader and the owner of the business. I haven't done a good enough job of preparing us to compete in a changing marketplace. We've built a good business over the years, but at some point, we all started to coast, haven't we? After reading the tea leaves and talking to colleagues and thinking about the last 5 years and thinking about the next 5 years to come, I know one thing for certain. What was good enough recently won't be good enough in the years to come. I need to be a more effective leader if we're going to realize our potential. We need to do a better job of creating clinical outcomes for patients that we know is in their best interests, even when they or the insurance companies don't understand. We need to be better teammates with one another and improve our communication within the team. And I think each of you knows a lot about how we can improve. So I look forward to hearing that from everyone, from each and every one of you in the weeks to come. I'm incredibly confident in each of your abilities, but I also recognize that change is hard and that some of you might not share my vision for what the business will be. Going forward, if this isn't the place for you, then I'll understand. I know our future is filled with opportunities, but I also know it's up to us to fulfill them. And I look forward to sharing more of my thoughts and insights with you in the weeks to come. Did some of that sound a bit out of character for any of you if you were to deliver it? Did it land, kind of heavy? Did it get your attention? Did it worry you slightly if you had been sitting in the audience? Good. I hope so. Because when I talk about recreating yourself in front of your team, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Delivering a message for change that's uncomfortable, out of character, unsettling, that rattles some cages and shakes some trees, but it gets people focused. I hope what I'm sharing will spur you to do the same, every bit as much as what I'm prepared to do right now. For those possibly listening for the first time, I'm Perrin Desports, and I spent the first 15 years of my career running 3 different businesses for Patterson Dental Supply, where I learned firsthand what it means to be an executive in a publicly traded company at a very, very early age. I left Patterson to become an entrepreneur where I helped launch 2 pretty successful startups in the dental space, Tusk and Polaris. Those 2 companies provided strategic consulting and partnership solutions and sell-side advisory services for emerging group practices. I've lived the life of being an effective executive. I've lived the life of being a hands-on consultant and strategist. And now I'm living the life of a moderately successful solo entrepreneur. At 55 years old, I don't have a ton of stories to tell. What I do have to share is wisdom that's born from my experience. My credentials come from results. And I'm truly blessed to have the opportunity to work with a group of highly accomplished entrepreneurs who happen to own dental practices. I focus on a relatively unique niche in the industry, and over the last 18 to 24 months or so, I've learned a lot about the people behind the practices with whom I work. What I've learned about each and every one of them has made me rethink the approach I take with this podcast. It's made me rethink the relationship I have with the audience. And to be clear, it's made me rethink the relationship I have with each of you. For as small of an industry as dentistry seems to be, we have a lot of podcasts out there. And frankly, there's a lot of noise. Every competitor in this landscape is speaking to really one of two buckets of listeners. On one hand, it's the dentist who's struggling operationally and needs tactical fixes. And on the other hand, it's the dentist who wants to scale aggressively and needs a growth blueprint. All of that noise bounces between some sort of, checklist manifesto on one end and scale for sale on the other. The audience is either an overworked, burned out grinder or some egomaniac destined to go down in a blaze of glory. Honestly, my audience is neither one of those. You all have already won the first game. You've created a business that clears 7 figures in revenue. You've built stable operations, and you woke up one morning to realize that the business you built can't really survive a week without you. Let me guess. You've attended hundreds of the same summits and seminars and conferences, and you've all downloaded the best framework or checklist or blueprint to lower your overhead or create the ideal schedule. Or, maybe you're in a different Marriott hotel ballroom in a different city filled with the same people who are all talking about ego-driven exits and EBITDA multiples and millions of dollars. And hey, the water in the deep end of the swimming pool is really warm and, you should just jump right on in. Look, if your overhead's too high, if your team is underperforming, if your associate's not producing, and if exit multiples aren't where you want them to be, there are other podcasts for that. The people I work with don't suffer from those problems. And most of you in this audience don't either. You've already hit every milestone or metric or KPI every other podcast has been pointing toward. The problem for you is that you find yourself kind of disoriented, almost like an identity crisis, because the instincts that made you a great clinician actively work against you as an executive, and you've just started to realize that. This isn't an operational problem that can be solved with a checklist or a how-to manual. I know what you're feeling because I've actually lived it too. And I wasn't any more prepared then than you are now. But it's time I acknowledge something with you. Honestly, time that I confront some brutal facts and see the world the way it is, not the way I want it to be. The podcast I've hosted for the last 18 months here, and those others that you've probably listened to longer than mine, they're all easy. They're like ear candy. You listen to mine and theirs on a treadmill or while you were cooking dinner or working out or taking a walk or doing something. They all offered quick fixes to easy problems and solutions to low-hanging fruit. And I think you're kind of tired of it. The more I've gotten to know my members and my audience is the more I've realized that you have no more low-hanging fruit to pick. You've attended enough seminars where the host was the teacher and you were the student. You're not a student anymore. Even though you probably don't think of it this way, you're at the top of your org chart, aren't you? As the leader of a business that generates in excess of $1 million in revenue, you've got more complicated problems to solve. You're no longer a clinician. You are an executive. My commitment to you is to start treating you as one and delivering tools and guidance and experience worthy of the challenges you face. Think of this more as a boardroom than a classroom. So, in my deep dive into my own podcast, the format, my approach, and trying to discover more about who I thought my audience was, I listened to quite a few of the competitors. And some of them are quite good at what they do, but what they do is not what I do or what I want to do. If you're truly having operational issues in your business, there are shows for that, but this won't be your answer. This won't be one of them. If you're looking for an appeal to your ego about how your business is worth several times more than it actually is, and that, private equity is the answer to all of your financial prayers, you're not going to find that in this show either. And if you're looking for some motivational guru or to be one of the dude bros out there, then it probably won't surprise you to find out that I wasn't one of the cool kids in high school. What I'm getting at is the following. If this shift in my focus and delivery doesn't appeal to you, then I'm not going to take it personally if you decide to unsubscribe. For those who do continue to subscribe or newly subscribe for the first time, I'll no longer treat you like a student who needs a checklist or a novice who needs motivating. I'm going to close this episode the way I started it. Reinventing yourself in front of your team is the most difficult thing you'll ever do. It's difficult because it's out of character for the way you've shown up in front of them for years. It feels unnatural to you and to them. But there comes a time and a place when something has to change, when we can never go back to the way things were before, where the future has to be different, and you see it clearly even when they don't. And the honest truth is that some of them may not make that transition with you. They were with you in the beginning, but they won't be in the end. There comes a time when we as leaders have to lay a cornerstone for what the future will become. We have to be the agent for the change we seek. I'll say that again. We have to be the agent for the change we seek. I'm laying that cornerstone down with all of you today. And I'm telling you clearly that you need to do the same for your team. Jack Welch was the former chairman and CEO of the General Electric Company. I've referenced him numerous times on my prior podcast. He also has a ton of great quotes. And there's one that I share often in my program, and it is as follows. When the rate of change outside the organization exceeds the rate of change inside, the end is near. Let me say that again. When the rate of change outside of the organization exceeds the rate of change inside the organization, the end is near. Being an effective executive means embodying the change you seek and leading the change necessary for your business. I recognize the need for that, and I'm declaring it for my business today. Do you see it as clearly for your business as I do for mine? I think you will in the weeks to come. If what I've shared today resonates or reverberates with you, I have one simple ask. Scroll down to the bottom of the Apple or Spotify or YouTube app or whatever it is you're listening to on, whatever platform it is, and leave a 5-star rating or even a review below. And if you really do feel compelled, share it with a friend or colleague who sits at the same inflection point that you do and who would benefit from this episode, and surely the ones to come. I think there are more of you out there. I'd appreciate you being an advocate for the show. We've got a lot to work on in the coming months, and much of it centers around the market we find ourselves in right now. That's going to start in next week's episode because many of you have colleagues who sold their practice or their group to a private equity-backed DSO coming out of the pandemic. And quite a few of you have heard your colleagues say, "Our DSO just recapped, but I didn't get any money out of it." We've just entered a unique point in time in our world, a period that I'm referring to as the era of the zombie DSO. If you're wondering what's next for you and your business, the answer's waiting for you on the Next Level Executive Podcast.